All right. Tony, let me just check this. I would ask you to share this live, but I think that might be a step too far, Tone,
I think you're probably right, Alex.
with your technology issues. So, yeah,
well
there, Tone. How are you?
We've done well to get this far. I'm good, Alex. Yeah, good. Thank you, mate. You?
Yes, mate. Yeah, you have done well, mate. I'm proud of you for making it this far. Tony was on the phone to me, but about 3 minutes before, going, "What do I do? How do I get on this StreamYard?" Tony, I'm just going to check that we're running smoothly on Facebook, and we are. So that's cool. And yeah, let me just get this all set. Technology's changed, her Tone.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit better with it, but just slowly. I managed to swap over my phone the other day, which I was impressed with.
Mate, they do it all for you now. They do it all for
That's
you.
What I mean.
You go into the shop now, they do it all for you. I actually used to like it before because one of the benefits of getting a new phone to me is the fact that it's a new phone and you haven't got all the crap junk on it.
Yeah,
but you end up with a new phone now with the same amount of crap on it. Right, Tone. So I'm going to bring up this banner. Check this out, dude. You'll be impressed with this. See this at the bottom here, Tone.
Professional counsellor, life trainer.
It would have been easier for me to write what you don't do. So,
yeah, I've done quite a bit, haven't I?
You have, and I guess that's what I want to speak to you about because, yeah, we're going to talk about life today and looking at what you've been through here: counsellor, life coach, trainer, self-defense expert, firefighter, sixth dan martial artist, and inside all of that there will be so many lessons. And one of the things I'm really interested in, Tony, is the fact that one of the best ways that I learn in life is by fucking things up and doing things wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I don't know whether there's another way to learn or whether that is the only way. What do you reckon to this? Is that the number one path to working out what life is all about? You literally go through and you discover what it's not. Sorry to start with an easy question.
No, it's okay. It's a good question. Yeah, I guess there's loads of different ways and everybody's different. That's the way I learn as well. You learn more when you get things wrong, don't you, boy? Because I guess for me, pain is a motivator. You know, I think you talked about it in your interview with Arjuna about pain and pleasure are motivators, which they are. And I know that when I look back over my life, the biggest decisions that I've made, changing careers and things like that, they've always been motivated by pain. So, which fits in with what you've just said. So when we get things wrong because it's painful, it tends to stick. Well, it does for me anyway. You know, if I get things wrong and, you know, it's a bit, say, for example, a bit embarrassing, I think, right, I don't want to do that again. So I'll make sure I get it right next time. I think I wouldn't say this probably not true, but a bit of an exaggeration. But I think most exams I've ever done, I tend to fail the first go and then feel there's a bit of a pattern going on here for me. And then because I feel embarrassed because I've failed it, I'll redo it and normally pass it with distinctions and things like that. And then think, why didn't I do that the first time?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Pain's a motivator.
You're looking through your career. So, I mean, you've had some quite different career paths, right? Different jobs, from training in the martial arts world, teaching self-defense, which I know you still do, author, firefighter. Like, what's the decision behind the change? Like, how does somebody go from firefighter, which is a pretty cool fucking job, right, into counsellor? Like, because that's not going to be a pain point, is it? Isn't that just a like, is this what life's about? Like, what made you go from firefighter into counselling people, into helping people?
That's another. Can you start off with some easy questions, Alex?
I don't do easy questions on here, mate. I literally jumped straight in. I forgot to introduce. I had Paul Morton last week. I forgot to introduce him. Just straight in with the questions. Yeah, but it just interests me because, like, I'm looking at your journey here, and I'm like, they're all different lives. Like, you've lived different lives.
Yeah, they are. But I think for me, when I look back at it, there's a common link that goes through all of them. And for me, it's about service. It's about helping people. So as a fireman, obviously, you know, the image that I had of joining a fire service was running into burning buildings and and saving people, you know, the hero. It wasn't quite like that. But then being a counsellor, you know, I'm helping people in the worst, sometimes, you know, their worst situations they can be in, the worst times of their life. As a self-defense instructor, again, helping people. So, you know, when I look back, it's all the career changes have been to do with helping people. And I think one of the reasons I left the fire service was because even though the fire service was about helping people, I think I just got to a point, it sounds weird when I say this, but I just got to a point where I just got a bit fed up of it, and I wasn't helping as many people as I thought I could. I actually stumbled into counselling through the fire service because they set up, the government brought out this thing about, you know, they did some research on people who'd been in prison, lifers and things like that. And they started off, which sounds quite obvious, they started off by committing petty crimes, like lighting fires, setting the grass on fire, setting bins on fire. And then obviously they progressed. So they thought, you know, who's the best people to go into? If a little kid gets caught lighting a fire, who's the best person to go and speak to them? Oh, you know, a firefighter. So they came out with this idea, and I volunteered because the area that I was brought up in, Coventry Wood End, was quite a rough area. And a lot of the lads I grew up with got into trouble and ended up going to prison. I was quite lucky because my parents were quite strict and kept quite a tight rein on us, which I'm so glad about now. At the time, I probably wasn't. But and so when the chance came up to help some of these young kids, I jumped straight in. They basically sent us on a 2-day course and said, "You're qualified counsellors now, off you go." And it was, I found myself in some situations, Alex. You know, I'd walk into a house. I remember walking into one house, all the windows were smashed. The mum was sitting there with a bloody nose. Her husband had smacked her in the face, and the kids are all crying. And I'm walking in to talk to this little kid about, you know, why he shouldn't be lighting fires. And ended up for an hour talking to the mum and trying to sort things out and just feeling so out of my depth. But I enjoyed the theory side of the counselling courses. So I paid for my own courses and did it myself, you know, and qualified as a counsellor. It took about 3 years, I think.
I bet you've, obviously, with the year that we've just experienced, I'm sure you're counselling a lot of men through various difficulties right now. What would you say the most common problem is during this pandemic? Is it the fact that there's, you know, guys are going through so much uncertainty right now? Is it the fact that it's exposed some of us to where we currently find ourselves? Like the people that you're working with now, what's the common theme?
Well, I think the biggest problem at the moment in mental health, Alex, I do some talks in school around this as well, is anxiety. Anxiety is massive, but anxiety covers a big area. You know, whenever I think of anxiety, I think fear. It's just another word for fear. But obviously, it's a bit of a buzzword. You know, people don't want to admit that they're scared, so they'll say, "I've got anxiety." So anxiety is the biggest thing. I think quite often when we're under pressure, we go back to our default setting. So if your default setting is to get angry, you'll get angry. If your default setting is to run and hide, you'll run and hide. For me, I noticed with the first lockdown, it really surprised me. What I struggled with was a lack of connection. You know, because I like to go to the gym, and you know, the Red Corner gym. Have a lot of banter in there with the guys and the trainers, and I found myself, it crept up on me a bit, Alex, because I found myself going into Coventry City town centre one day just to wander around. You know, we're in the middle of lockdown, so there wasn't many people around, and I thought, well, I'm bound to bump into someone I know, and I didn't. Then, so the next week I went to go in again, and I caught myself and thought, why are you going in? I was having this conversation with myself. Why are you going into Coventry Town Centre? And then I realised that it was in the hope just to bump into people. And it was at that point that I realised I needed to get back to the gym and start connecting with people again. So, so that connection bit for me was massive. You know, when we're in a lockdown, you know, if you're working from home, you're not meeting other people, the connection bit's massive. And obviously a lot of people are suffering, aren't they? A lot of people are losing jobs. Uncertainty, again, I'm using the word a lot, but massive. As human beings, we don't like uncertainty. You know, that's where compulsive disorders and things like that come from. People don't like uncertainty, so we like to control things. Again, it's all back to fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it flags up some people, like, I got asked a question yesterday by a guy who's like, how do I make my health more valuable to me? And what I've learned through this lockdown is I've been presented, I've been shown what is actually valuable, and everything you've just said, like, what I really miss is none of the big stuff. It's nothing big. It is going into town, having a coffee and chatting shit with a mate over breakfast. That's pretty much what I miss. And I think we do get shown these things. I just wonder how we can continue to how we can build on it when this is over, because I can already feel some tension in the air. I can feel where people are going to explode. They're going to go nuts. They're going to drink, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wonder whether we'll lose the messages, like you say, because we go back to our default setting. And I know I've worked with you for years. It's always easier to go back to your default setting. It feels like sometimes you're trying to fight that default setting. It's quite tiring. So how do we even get to create this new person that doesn't go back to the way that we've been conditioned for fucking 20, 30, 40, 50 years?
I guess the answer, Alex, is you've just hit it on the nail. We've been conditioned. So it's about reconditioning ourselves, isn't it? Sticking with these new habits, being consistent with them. And it's hard because I think everything's gonna, talking about this today to a friend of mine, and we're on about, I think Boris had said, someone said about working from home was going to be the new thing, and Boris Johnson apparently said no, it's not. We want people to go back to work. We want people to go back into the city centres, and I get that. So I think we're going to be conditioned and, you know, controlled to a certain extent to go back to work, to keep the city centres going and things like that. But if you think about it, Alex, the way I used to call it neurological pathways, the way our brains work, but in post-traumatic stress now, they talk about memory chains. So how we form memory chains, and everything we do, you know, whatever situation you're in, your brain will automatically go back through all its memory. Your memory is like your guidebook, you know. We couldn't survive without our memory. Yeah, because that's how. So, like I say, every situation you get to, your brain will go all the way back through all your memory chains and find either something that similar to what you've done it before, or something close. Yeah. So that's why I think it's easier for us to drift back, because we've got these memory chains already stored in our brains, and it's easier to drift back to an old memory chain rather than create a new memory chain. So, you know, I don't think there's an easy answer to it. Well, I guess easy and simple are two different things, aren't they? You know,
yes.
The easy answer is to go, right, I need to create some new pathways or new memory chains by being consistent with these new habits that I'm forming. But that's not simple, is it?
It's not, and that's why I look at what you've done. You know, go from the firefighting world to counselling, and you're almost forced to change the way you do things then, aren't you? I think it's hard when somebody stays in the same environment all the time and tries to create change when nothing around them really changes. And I think sometimes throwing yourself into a new environment, almost like you create a new identity, don't you? And I guess when you do what you've done, and yeah, I'm a fireman now, like, it's legit. Like, you have to show up as a fireman. You can't not. You don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And it's just you know, getting more guys to maybe look at that side, like, how can you make the big changes so that the behaviors have to fall into place so that you get those outcomes? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. And I think, like we said earlier, I think control's a big part of it, isn't it? And then that ties in with the change. You know, even I was thinking then as you were talking, Alex. So I was talking to my wife. My wife works at a hospital in Coventry, and she was saying, obviously, with all the COVID thing, a lot of the nurses are being shifted around to different wards, and they've been on those wards for years, and now they're being told you're working on a different ward today. And she was saying, even for her, how uncomfortable that was. And I remember being in the fire service. You know, I worked in Coventry, but if some fire station in Birmingham was short of firefighters, and we had enough, you would send, you know, I could go into work and they'd say, Tony, you're over in Birmingham today. Which never went down well with people. But again, I'd see people kick and scream going, it's not my turn, it's his turn. I went last time. And they'd have a list of who went, you know, it went off a list. If it was your turn, it was your turn. But again, it always used to fascinate me, because I think just even within that job, people didn't like change. You know, people would get to a fire station, Alex, and they'd stay at that fire station for 30 years. I like to stay at a fire station for a few years and then move around to find out what it was like at different fire stations. You know, so one fire station might have a lot of motorway incidents and car crashes. Another fire station might cover a lot of fires, and I wanted experience of all the different things. I guess for me, it's learning. You know, learning's quite an important value for me. I want to keep learning. You know, I'm only here for a limited time, so I want to learn as much as I can. The best way of learning is by experiencing it, isn't it?
I think it's the only way, isn't it?
Well, I guess, I mean, you can learn from reading a book, can't you? But it's putting that into action, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know whether you do learn from reading a book. I think you might gain more knowledge. I don't know whether you learn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? You know, I'm a big believer. I'm gonna counter myself here, contradict myself, because if I can learn from part of your experience, Alex, without having to do it. I always think this is not a great example, but from a self-defense point of view, if somebody said to me, you know, if I was in a different town and somebody said to me, not that I would go to a pub anyway, but don't go to that pub, it's really rough, I wouldn't go to that pub. Do you know what I mean? So I've learned from that, because that guy might say, well, I've been in that pub and it's a really rough pub. So I've learned from his experience, haven't I? Rather than having to go in the pub and get smacked in the head and go, oh, that guy was right. So you can learn from other people's experiences as well, can't you?
Absolutely. But I always think that, like, let's say you're on the punch bag, right, and you're trying to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
And then when you only really learn how to fight, and you'll know this through Animal Day, right? How do you learn how to fight? You learn how to fight by having a fight, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think there's levels of learning, isn't there? But Tony, you said something that's really interesting. Like you've mentioned a few times about certainty and control. I'm reading a lot of books about the universe now, astrophysics, all these things that are basically telling us we have zero control over a lot of things in life. We don't even know when life started. We don't know when it's going to end. We just know that it will. And a lot of guys are, and again, they're brave to ask me this question, or maybe not they ask the question, we have the conversation of like, you know, what is the fucking purpose of life if you know it's going to come to a catastrophic end? And I kind of understand that question. I always counter it with, I think death is what makes it quite special and important. But you must deal with this all the time, right? In counselling, like people struggle to see what, you know, why is it worth all the effort? Why would you spend years of your life dedicating yourself to self-development, self-improvement? Like, what is the point? Like, what makes life worth living? And I know you could answer this in a million different ways. But it must come up, right? Like, I think we're all sitting here now going, what is the point? Like, what's life all about?
Yeah, but I guess the answer for me again comes back to fear, doesn't it? So, why do we fear death? Because it's unknown. You know, unless you've got a really strong a faith, you know, you believe whatever your belief is in God, you know, you're going to go to heaven or whatever it is. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm guessing, I'd hope most of those people, if their faith is that strong, are not going to be scared of death. I've never met anybody yet. I watch people die in the fire service, and I've worked in different areas. I never saw anybody, you know, go out singing and dancing and be glad. People fought for their last breath. So I think it's fear, but that fear comes back in play in another way here as well, Alex. I think a lot of times we're scared to live. You know, it's fear of life is another thing. Why not go and learn all, you know, you're only here for a limited time. You know, when I did my video, Embrace Your Fears, I started off in a graveyard deliberately because I thought, well, this is the ultimate fear. Most anxiety, if you trace it back, comes back to a fear of death. People are anxious about getting on aeroplanes. Well, they're not anxious about getting on the aeroplane. They're anxious about the aeroplane crashing. People are anxious about heights. They're not anxious about the height. They're anxious about falling. What happens if I fall? I might die. So, you know, most things we can trace back at a deep level to a fear of death. If we're rejected by people, you know, it goes back. I think Gavin de Becker talked about this in his book, The Gift of Fear, that if you go back to, you know, cavemen, cavewomen times, if you were rejected by the tribe, your chance of living very long was you know, minimal. Because the environment was so hard, and and it's a tenuous link, but he says, you know, when we feel, you know, stand up to talk to a group of people and they go, you're crap, they reject you, one of his theories is that it taps into that, that fear of death that way as well. So I think it's about a fear. For me, it's about a fear of living, Alex, and not being scared to try new things, letting go of the control. I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about, doesn't he, chaos and order. That's his big theory, and that we're scared of the chaos. So we want order. But if you get too much order, it's boring.
Absolutely. Like a lot of people will experience boredom, and that's where I think distractions come into play, right? So I've just done this 2-day challenge. It was quite easy actually, where like no TV, no YouTube, no music, nothing. Like it had to be silent in the house, because I know that when I get bored, there's distractions everywhere. I never need to be bored ever again, Tone. I never need to be bored ever again. So I never really have to sit and think about these things, unless I choose to. It's quite interesting. And I always wondered, well, when you take distractions away from somebody, what's left? What's left? For me, the best way to know what physical shape you're in is take all your clothes off and look in the mirror. Like that will tell you, right? It will tell you whether you're eating too much, not enough. It will tell you whether you're training or not. And I thought, well, how can you do that with the mind? And I thought, well, you can take things away from it. And that was quite interesting. So how does somebody manage those fears then? So you've got these fears, like you've mentioned, like, some fears will keep us alive, right? Like we know that if we're at a really high height, the fear will come and say, Alex, you don't want to be jumping over the fucking edge, mate. You'll be dead. You'll be flat on the floor. Where do we get lost in this, and when and how do we unravel fear a little bit so that it doesn't stop us from getting the things in life that we actually want to do?
I think what you just did then for the 2 days, I know you said it was easy. I think that would be hard for most people. I've noticed counselling, especially men, especially men that go from relationship to relationship, and they're normally always toxic relationships. And, one of the challenges that I'll set them, and very, very few do it, be on your own for a while. And people really struggle with that, to be on their own. So they can't do it. So they'll go straight into another relationship rather than be on their own. So I think what you've got to do is turn into it, which is easier said than done. But it's like, so when I joined the fire service, believe it or not, I had a fear of heights. And the first test one of the tests to get in the job was to go up a big ladder, get to the top of the ladder, put your leg through the rounds, and then lean back with one leg. So let both hands go and one leg go. So you just hang. I was crapping myself. Yeah. But because I wanted to get into it so bad, that I overrode that fear. It's the same as getting in the ring or doing the animal days or every instinct is telling you to go the other way. But and again, one of the things I learned from grappling, which was a fantastic lesson for me, you've got someone like John Anderson bending you in half and cranking your neck, and you're thinking, I can't breathe here. And then you realise, actually, but I can still breathe out of this tiny little corner in my mouth. I'm actually okay. I'm still alive. I'm all right. It's hurting, but I'm okay. So, but the thing in grappling, Alex, as you know yourself, you've got to turn in. The worst thing you can do is turn away, because if you turn away, you're going to get tapped out. You're going to get strangled. But everything in your mind is going, get out of this situation. But you have to do the opposite and go into it. And you're actually safer when you turn into the person trying to rip your head off than you are trying to get away from it. So that was a great lesson for me, and one I'd already known. I think it's working out what your fear is and facing it, which is hard. But for me, it's all about going in. All the answers are on the inside. I get that you've got to work outside. I completely get it. I've done it probably most of my life, but as I've got older, I've realised that the answers are inside. Outside can help you get there, but at some point, you've got to turn in and face whatever your fears are. Whether it's fear of rejection, whatever it is.
Yeah. Do you need to know why you would put yourself through the challenge of facing a fear? Like, do you have to have a purpose that's stronger than the fear? Because I don't know who's going to sit there at home with no purpose, with no goals in life, and put themselves through that unnecessary pain of tackling their fear. So do you need to do a bit of digging and find out what you'd like to achieve and then tackle the things that get in the way?
Yeah, definitely. There's different stages. This is where I think a lot of people and life coaches go wrong. People are at different stages. There's lots of different theories on this, so, and if you give somebody the wrong information at the wrong stage, you can knock them backwards. So I think it is about that's Gitana. Thanks, Gitana. It is about, first of all, there's no harm in getting all the information, you know. It works with addiction as well, Alex. I'm going to use this as a comparison. So first of all, you know, you're working with somebody who maybe drinks too much or takes drugs, you know, but they're not ready to change. So all you do at that stage is get them to look at the information, give them the information. This is what this is doing to you. This is what will happen if you carry on. Until they're ready to make that decision, then they want to look at it. They want to change. Yeah. So that's the action stage. So now they're ready for action. So it's the same with yourself. You need to look at what are your goals, what are your values, you know, what are you scared of? If you weren't, a good question is, I've probably said this to you before, if you weren't scared, what would you be doing? You know, if you had no fear in your life, what would you be doing at this moment in time? And you might be surprised at the answer, you know. And again, like I said, we're all different, and I think that's a you know, for a lot of my life, Alex, I've always beat myself up for lacking drive. You know, I'm pretty laid, as you know, I'm pretty laid back. I'm really easy going, but I've come to accept that, and I'm all right with that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? For years, I'd be beating myself up, saying you need to get more drive, you need to and there's nothing wrong with that. But it was almost like that was going against my personality, which I know I can change. But I'm actually quite happy with who I am. So it's really, I guess that's the answer, isn't it? Being happy with who you are and where you are.
Yeah, something that really helped me with, you know, doing the things that were scary was when I decided to focus more on who I wanted to be versus what I wanted. So this really took it up a level for me. Like I started asking better questions, like what kind of man do I want to be, rather than what do I want. And all my goals now, or my direction, go more in that order because. At one stage, I could pretty much say I wasn't a very nice guy to be around. So, you know, especially around the people that I love the most, which was bizarre, isn't it? It's like your clientele get all the best of you, get your best energy, you know, and in front of them, you're this fucking great guy. So yeah, I think that really helped me. And when I'm coaching my guys now, I do it in layers. I'm like, well, who do you want to be? What do you want? What do you want to get? And then how do we get there? That stays at the top for me. What kind of man do I want to be?
Yeah, and then there's another stage there as well, Alex, maintaining it. That's the final stage.
Surprisingly fucking hard.
Yeah, that's what you touched on earlier, wasn't it? About, you know, getting there, and then how do you change those patterns? And that's the final stage that a lot of people miss, because people can only train with you or me for so long, and then they're going to be. So it's that I was thinking about it earlier. It's that. It's that old saying, isn't it? Give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, or teach him how to fish and he can eat for a lifetime. So it's actually teaching people to maintain this and keep on it, which is the hard bit. But then again, you need a why. You need a why, don't you? Viktor Frankl, if you've got a why, was it Nietzsche? If you've got a strong enough why, you'll overcome any how. So like you said, why am I doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's important, because often the pain will subside, you know, when things become better. The thing that was the motivator, and I was speaking to Arjuna about this, the thing that was the motivator is no longer there. So you'll have people, you know, I need to lose weight, I'm desperate to lose weight. They lose a bit, and all of a sudden, I feel a bit better. Boom, backwards, that pain hits again. And eventually, it's almost like their identity isn't changing. Like they've got the ambition, they've got the drive, they want to, but the identity remains the same. They're still this overweight person, and they always will.
And I think a lot of that goes back to what we were saying earlier about the memory change. Patterns are really important, because you'll see people repeating the same patterns over and over again. Like you just said, it's a good example. They'll get to a place where they'll lose weight, be okay with it, put the weight back on again, lose weight. People do it in relationships, don't they? They go from, you know, they stay in abusive relationships and keep going back and going back and going back. It's quite, I think for me as a therapist, a lot of stuff goes back to childhood, you know. So you're trying to override these tapes and these scripts that go all the way back to childhood, which you can do, but you know, it's hard.
I want to speak about that next, because this really fucked me up, right? So this arrived today, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I've got mine here.
Brand new. I'm super excited to read it. It came out the other day. Oh, wicked! Right, there you go. So I signed up for his self-authoring program, like you've done.
And me. Yeah,
really hard work, like you said it is, and he does this past self-authoring program and future. So I guess, you know, his theory is that you look into the past and then you try and create a new future from it. What are the benefits of a man delving into his past and looking at all the ugly stuff, all the stuff that he doesn't want to, all the things that he probably should dive into that he really doesn't want to? What are the benefits of doing that?
Well, I think the first benefit that comes to mind straight away, which we've just been talking about, is you start to see your patterns that you don't even know exist because you've never really looked at them. You know, I know myself, when I used to work with Paul Regan, we used to get people to keep diaries, and the resistance in people keeping a diary, it was incredible. And it still is now. But the idea of keeping a diary is that you write down your thoughts, you write down, you know, what was good about today, what was bad about today, what did I learn, what can I carry forward, what can I do differently tomorrow. If you do that for just a few weeks, what you'll start to do is see your patterns.
Yep.
What I learned straight away doing the Jordan Peterson self-authoring program straight away, which I hadn't really clicked before, maybe I knew somewhere, was, you know, he starts off asking you questions, doesn't he? And I didn't answer. I made my own questions, and I'd go off on a tangent and be writing. And I thought, this is what you always do. Every exam, every test, you don't, you know, when I did a complicated bereavement course for Mighton Hospice, I worked at the hospice for a couple of years. You know, I sent in, I did the work, did the exam, had to do a written article, and I sent it in, and they came back. They said, brilliant, loved what you've written, but it wasn't what we asked you. And I just thought that's a real pattern of mine, Alex. And I did it straight away with the Jordan Peterson thing. So then I had to start looking at it. Okay, straight away I've spotted a pattern in the first few questions. What's that about? Why am I not answering what he's asking me to answer? Is there something?
Guess how much of it I've done?
I don't know.
0.
Oh, yeah. I'm just over halfway.
Why is it so fucking hard to answer a question about a difficult time in your life?
I guess it's because it's going back into the pain, isn't it? But for me, that's not, like you said earlier about dipping back into it. For me, dipping back into it is not about wallowing in it or marinating in it. It's accepting that it's there. You know, I know for me, you know, when I look at, you know, being really honest here, I know that I've got a scared little boy still in me. He's there. You know, if I go to give a talk at a big conference or something, you know, I remember doing one in London for 200 consultants. Consultants are hard work in the hospital. You know, they're hard work. And just as on the train going down to London, you know, these thoughts were coming up in my head. Why don't you phone ahead and tell them you're not feeling very well and you'll come back another day? You know, and I realised it was the scared little boy in me. And as I went to walk in the room, the trainer who was training them before me walked out, a woman, and she said to me, good luck with them lot. And I just thought, oh no. And then I remember standing on the stage, and I had some little video clips to show them, and the projector wasn't working. You know what I'm like with technology. We've had this. I was like, and then I just reached a point, and I just thought, right, inside my head, I had to tell the little boy. I always acknowledge the scared little boy. Look, I know you're scared, but just trust me. Trust the adult bit of me. I've been, you know, in loads of scary life situations. It's going to be all right. And in my head, I'm thinking. I looked out at the audience, 200 consultants just staring at me, arms folded. And in my head, I'm thinking, right, fuck it, let's go. And at the end, they clapped me. They stood up and clapped me. And when I walked out, the other trainers were going, what did you do? And I went, I was just honest. I was just dead honest with them. You know, I didn't give them any bullshit. Just so.
I think every man listening right now will understand what you mean when you say that scared little boy, because we feel like it shouldn't be there. Like, you know, you've got this adult body, this man body, even if you've got the muscles, you know, you look in the mirror and you see this fucking strong physique, tattoos, chest. Inside you feel like this, this terrified.
Definitely.
But and this is good to you know that you're saying this, because dude, you know, you've been in the physical world where you've been physical, you've had fights with people, you know, you've been threatened, you've had, you know, full on fucking fisticuffs with no gloves on kind of fights. It's good to know that you still get scared by standing on a stage or other things in life, because you assume that, you know, a tough guy, a Mike Tyson kind of guy who speaks about this really well, he always says, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified.
Yeah, definitely. And those past events, like we said, you know, those memory chains can help. That's one of the things I do. You know, if I'm standing up in front of that audience, for example, I'm thinking, You know, none of these people are going to stand up and punch me in the head and try and knock me out. So I've been through worse than what you lot are going to do to me. So that does help. But for me, going back to what you were saying earlier about, I think you do have to go back and face for me, it is about working with that little boy, working out where he comes from, where did the fear come from, how can I work with him, how can I, for me, it's about embracing him and accepting him. And, that doesn't, people, when you talk about acceptance, people think you're going to give in to it, but you don't. By acknowledging he's there, it actually really, it's like, I remember reading a book about running, Alex, years ago, and it said, if you're aching, if your legs are aching, actually acknowledge it, talk to your legs, probably best not to do it out loud when you're out running, but, so, and I actually remember doing it. My legs are really aching, and I actually, by acknowledging the pain in my legs, the pain started to go. And I thought, this is brilliant. It's almost like the elephant in the room. So let's acknowledge the elephant in the room, because if we don't acknowledge it, it just gets bigger and bigger. So if I acknowledge that I've got a scared little boy in me, and I've worked with that scared little boy quite a lot, actually really it becomes, instead of like wrapping himself around my leg and pulling me back, which has happened to me a lot, I never fought, when I performed in the ring, I never fought anything like my ability because I was so scared. But now I've got him, hopefully, most of the time on solid, so I acknowledge him, go, look, I know you're scared, but we're going to be all right. The adult bit of me can control the situation. We'll be okay. But if I ignore him, he just screams louder, and I'll get scareder and scareder. It's just a part of me, Lex. It's a part of me.
I think it's a part of everyone, isn't it? I really butted heads with my therapist there. I've been seeing this guy once a week for the last year. And I read a book last night which triggered me a bit. It basically said, look, because he's a psychotherapist, is that right? Psychotherapist?
Yeah, psychodynamic.
And it's all, we do look at some stuff deep down at deep levels, far back. And this book was saying, look, you could do that for 5 years, waste 50 grand, nothing's going to fucking change. What you need to do is go into future-based problem solving. I was like, that sounds easier. I'm up for that. So, like I did today on my course, I was like, said to this guy, Aidan, my therapist, I was like, Aidan, I'm not sure this shit's working, man. And he basically says to it, it's like the basement, like, things in the basement, like, and you need to go there. And it's always protected behind you. You can't fucking see it. So you have to go there in order to bring it out in front of you to see what the fuck's going on, because you won't be able to change shit unless you can see it.
Yeah.
He's saying that you don't fixate on it, you don't wallow on it like you've said, but you need to at least be aware of its presence.
Yeah. It's powerful.
It is. It makes sense to me. But part of my argument was, well, you've only got so much attention. Do you put it on these things, or do you put it on the future, the new habits, the new way you want to live life? Like, there's a balance, isn't it?
But my argument would be, Alex, that it goes back to what we were saying about patterns. If you don't go back and look at this, even though you're concentrating on the new stuff, if you're not careful, I'd say 99% chance you'll drift back into those old patterns. That scared little bit of you is not going to go away. You can bury him behind muscles and tattoos and go and have fights and stuff like that. I've done all that. It doesn't go away. It just comes up in different areas. And like with anxiety, what happens with anxiety is we just put it into a different area. I remember working with a woman a few years ago and getting her, she was a foreign woman and she wanted to go home, but she was scared to fly. She was just terrified of traveling. So eventually we got her to travel and she went home, and I thought, brilliant, that's the end of the sessions now. It took a while, but she actually got home and she was over the moon. She was still scared, but she did it. She was phoning me going, I'm doing it, I'm getting on that, brilliant. Okay, and she did it. Then a couple of weeks later, she came, can I see you again? I said, yeah, and she'd managed to get herself pregnant, and now she was terrified of being pregnant. So she transferred her anxiety from traveling now to being pregnant, which is understandable in a way, but that's what we do with our fears. Unless you get to the crux of it, all you'll do is transfer it onto something else. That's all you'll do. You can go and achieve all these goals. That's what I was saying to you earlier. It's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I admire people who do that. But unless you've worked on this stuff on the inside, you'll find yourself back there again, because it's not going to go away. Or you will achieve all your goals and you'll still be miserable. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Tony Robbins calls that the biggest failure, doesn't he? He says, you achieve everything you want to in life and you still feel unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Again, I think like we have to go there, don't we? Like, I always said I had a vision board when I was 16 because that was the fucking thing to do, right? And it was a car, it was a house, it was a dog, it was the whole, all that shit. And then you get it, and you suddenly realize, well, this ain't it, man. This ain't. It can't be it, because if this is it, it sucks. So then I think, it's you go to that new level, don't you? Of, well, who do I want to become? And I think in order to get to that place, you have to go back and slay some demons along the way. But something else that I find hard to accept is that it's a lifetime game. Like, this is a full-time game, and it doesn't stop. You have to continuously work on this shit until your time's done. And that's
maybe. I don't know the answer to that because I'm still working on it. But
of course, you always will be. I think that's again, there's the level of acceptance. Like, I'm going to have to work on being a good person.
Yeah, it depends what your beliefs are. To me, it's getting back to the source, isn't it? Because we're born pure, and we attach all these defense mechanisms to us. Like you said, obviously as you get older and you look at the muscles and the tattoos, they can become another defense mechanism just to keep people away. Weight can be, yourself, weight can be a barrier, can't it, to keep people away?
Yeah.
It's a physical barrier to keep people at distance. So you're not going to like me. So, I remember working with a guy years ago. He was 20. He couldn't fit on the doctor's scales. He was off the scales. I think they went up to 22 stone and he was above that. And I used to really look after this guy. And he didn't have any money. So this is how soft I am. We did a lesson and he said, I haven't got any money. So I gave him some of the money that he paid me for bus fare. And I went outside and there's the guy. There's a chip shop by the Red Corner gym. And the guy's eating fish and chips. And I said, what are you doing? I thought you didn't have any money for bus fare. That's why I gave you the money. And he went, I brought fish and chips. And he started laughing. And I was okay. I was a little bit miffed with him. And then he said, if I keep eating these, Tony, I'm going to need a sports bra, aren't I, the way I'm going? And I said, what's wrong with you? Why'd you do that? And we ended up having a really deep conversation outside the gym. And it was a fear. He goes, I'm scared of, he's basically scared of women. And he goes, I'm scared of women seeing my body. So I actually get myself bigger and bigger so they won't want to see it. And I said to him, well, keep doing what you're doing. Where are you going to end up? He goes, well, I'll probably have a heart attack. And I said, well, so where are you going to be? He said, well, I'll probably be in hospital. I said, who do you think is going to be giving you bed baths and, looking after you when you're in hospital? And he was like, oh, shit. So he hadn't thought about that women is the thing that we're scared is often waiting just around the corner for us. And the thing that we're scared of is often just waiting down the road for us. So again, I'm a big believer in face the fear, almost like get it over and done with. Face it. It's hard. It's going back to the source, isn't it, Alex? Sometimes it's about without realizing we can be adding other layers on instead of stripping the layers back. And going inside and going right and fine. And then, like you said earlier, sitting on our own and going, what's really at the core of me? Who am I?
Yeah.
Like for me, it's a spiritual being, that we all are. And it's finding, I've worked with some horrible people, Alex, and in probation, I work with paedophiles and all sorts of people. And I've got to find something in them for me to be able to work with them, some sort of good bit somewhere. Even though what they're doing is disgusting and people need protecting from them, which they do. But you've got to be, and I believe that 99% of people have got that divine spark in them somewhere. It's just being buried. Most of them type of people have been abused themselves as well, which is no excuse, but it gets buried underneath all of this shit. And it's about digging it away at ourselves and getting back to, like I said, when we're born pure, aren't we? And we learn all this stuff. Different types of therapies will call it different things, injunctions or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so I had a guy who's only in his late 20s, same thing. Like, he just wouldn't take his shirt off in front of his girlfriend. He was just, but he wouldn't change it either. It was almost as if, and I understand this. When you don't like yourself on a deep service level, like you're never going to let anybody else close in to see that either, are you? You're always going to keep people away because 1, what's in there, 2, you don't like it, and 3, you don't want anyone else to fucking see it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it goes back to what we've said, which is like you've got to do the work you've got to have a look at what's going on, especially if you want to have a good relationship with somebody. And this is, I mean, we'll be very open on this. This is what I saw you about, wasn't it? Is struggling to develop good relationships, because the one with myself at the time wasn't very good.
Yeah, relationships are hard. Do you know what I mean? It's another area, isn't it? When you go into a relationship with somebody, they're really hard. They take a lot of work.
Mate, they're the fucking hardest thing. They're the fucking hardest thing. I learned that self-development is easy when you're on your own. Sitting in my house, Tony, reading my books, like, great. I'm the man. I'm brilliant at it.
Yeah.
Integrate it into the real world with people that are going to test your emotions. And I think then you really find out a lot about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I guess, like with the relations, a lot of it's giving, isn't it? But if you're not in that place where you haven't looked at yourself and you haven't got anything to give, all you're going to do is take, and it becomes selfish then. One person ends up giving and the other person ends up taking, and that can change in a relationship as well. It can change from person to person. So yeah, relationships are hard. I do couples counselling, but I try and avoid it where I can, because working with one person can be hard enough when you've got two. Yeah. But the big part of couples counselling is just getting people talking again, giving them exercises to do. Right, go home, get an hour to yourselves and work through this exercise. When did you meet each other? What did you like about each other back then? And trying to get that going again. But sometimes it's about honesty, and it's not. Normally they say with couples counselling, people come for two reasons. One is because they're genuinely stuck and they need help to work through it. They both want to work through it. And the other one, which I found a lot, and it's really uncomfortable, is one of them doesn't want to be in the relationship, but doesn't know how to say it. And sometimes they're hoping that you as a therapist is going to say it for them, but that's not my job. I'm not doing it. I just keep giving the responsibility back to them. If you want to say this, you say it.
Well, it goes back to what you've spoke about a lot during this talk, which is the fear, right? So a lot of people fear, as you said, a lot of people can't handle being on their own, and therefore choose to be in the unhappy situation. So, Tone, can we talk a little bit more about the concept of the violence that you've experienced in your life, and what that did with your relationship with fear? Because, I mean, I don't even actually know how you got started in the world of the martial arts and the violence that you experienced in your life. Like, when did that even start?
Well, the martial art.
Or more. I guess I'm more interested in the violence, the fight in the Animal Day, because that's quite a controversial topic now. I don't know whether it was back then, but this was just pre-UFC days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was massively controversial. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what year are we talking here?
Oh God, hang on. That's good.
20 years ago.
Yeah, maybe, probably more, maybe.
Yeah, and it was Jeff Thompson, right, who come up with this concept of you learn how to defend yourself.
Maybe could be 30 years ago, Alex. Getting on for 30 years ago. Definitely late. I'd say 25 years, around that, maybe a little bit longer.
30 years, maybe. I was 6. I was 6 years old. Yeah.
Well, what happened for me, Alex, was like on and off throughout my life. I'd always been interested in like boxing and different martial arts. Never really stuck at them. I'd have a go for a few weeks, normally go with a mate. My mate would stop going, so then that was my excuse to stop going, which I didn't realise at the time. But looking back at it now, I could blame them. Well, I would have carried on going, but they stopped. And then being brought up in Woodend, it was quite a rough area. So there was lots of little fights going on and stuff with different, even just from different parts of Woodend, groups of kids from different parts of Woodend would be fighting each other. Then going to school, I went to Cardinal Wiseman School in Coventry. It was an all-boys school, so it was quite a rough school as well.
I went there.
Did you?
Yeah, I was at Cardinal Wiseman.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. When was it mixed when you were there?
Yeah.
When I was there, it was an all boys school. My first day there was a fight. In the first year of Cardinal Wiseman, I had 13 fights.
Wow, you counted them. How many wins? 13.
Well, pretty much, yeah. But what had happened? I think what had happened with me there, Alex, was the first couple of days. The first day, I remember sitting in the playground with my mate from Woodend, Frank McGee, who was a nutter. He'd start a fight in an empty house. He's passed away now, which is probably a good thing for most people. To be fair, I know that sounds horrible, but he was mad.
Right. Okay.
And he never changed all through his life. He never changed.
Yeah.
But me and him were sitting there like two little kids. I didn't even know where the school was, Alex. My mum just said to me, "Go and follow them bigger boys over there."
Yeah.
So that's how I found out where the school was.
Yeah.
And then we're sitting at the playground first break saying how much we hate it, like two little kids. And this older kid came up to us. I think I've said this in the book. And this older kid came up to us and started having a go at us. And the next thing, Frank's older brother, he had 7 older brothers, which was lucky, the 6, I think, came up and said, "Is this kid picking on you?" And I was so scared, I was ready to say, no, because I didn't want any trouble. And Frank just went, "Yeah, he called us this, he called us that." So they're next thing, they're going toe to toe, and the whole schools are gathering round. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And then there was a lad came to the school after that. He'd been expelled from another school. He was quite a well-known guy around Coventry, a doorman, quite a violent guy later on in life. And he was just, everyone was terrified of him. And he picked on me a couple of times. And I never hit him back. I was too scared of him. And then one night I stayed behind after school because I don't know if it's still when you were there. I had a swimming pool, and I stayed behind. I stayed behind to go swimming with Frank. And these 2 older kids came past us. Asked Frank if he had any older brothers, which he had 6, and he reeled them all off. And they said to me, "Have you got any older brothers?" And before the words "no" left my mouth, they were like kicking me and punching me. And I remember walking home with a fat lip and, crying. And then thinking, because I had 3 younger brothers, and I thought, when they come to school, someone's going to have to look after them. And my mum would, if I went home crying and a bloody, "Did you hit them back? Did you do this? Did you do that?" And I remember thinking, something just clicked in me then, Alex. I just thought, the fear of getting punched in the face is not as bad as the shame and that feeling of having to go home and tell my mum what happened to me. So I decided to fight back, and I just started. The lad who everyone was scared of, I was the first one in the school to sort of beat him up. And then I don't know. I thought this ain't as bad as getting, those shameful feelings are not as bad as getting, are worse than getting punched in the face, if you know what I mean. So but then I think that, again, that scared little kid was always there, Alex, because if we go forward then, I think I was in my mid-20s, 26, 27. I'm married with 2 little kids. And I remember just being full of fear and doubting myself and thinking, this was my thought pattern, which was really bad. If anyone ever attacked my kids or anyone ever attacked my wife, would I be able to defend them? And I was just so full of doubt that I ended up doing some training with a friend of mine, and he mentioned Jeff Thompson's club, and we went along to Jeff's club, and then that was it then. Just ended up, got on really well with Jeff. And he was becoming a big name then. He was a doorman in Coventry, and it just went from there, really.
Cool. So I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. Before I do, Tony, I need to go to the fucking toilet.
Okay.
I'll be 30 seconds and I'll wash my hands. And then, I've got some good questions about Animal Day.
You want me to carry on talking while you're away? If anyone's watching this, you're just going to get to look at my face here. This is not supposed to happen. I'm sure this wouldn't happen on television, on some of them big shows where they interview people. You don't see the host running off and going to the toilet. But like we said earlier, you just got to go with what's happening and accept it. I suppose it's better than Alex sitting there and wetting himself in the chair. But anyway, if anyone is watching this, thanks for watching. I hope you get something out of it. I'm not sure how long we've got left. But I hope you get something out of it. And if anyone's got any questions, just ask as well. Fire some questions up. Or if afterwards, if anyone wants to get in touch and ask some questions, just ask. I'm sure Alex will put the contact details on here. I'm still doing one-to-ones with people. Some people face-to-face, some people over the telephone.
You got to go. You got to go.
You're away.
Right, dude. Animal Day. I think obviously, if you're a Coventry guy, you probably would have heard of it. You probably would have heard of Jeff Thompson. But explain for those listening who don't know what it was, the brutality and what Animal Day actually was.
So if you put it into context, like you were saying earlier, you got to remember that the UFC wasn't around. There was no one really doing anything like this, and Jeff was always really good, Jeff Thompson, at being ahead of the game. You know, we're talking about days. I know it's hard to imagine it, but I can't even remember we had mobile phones. We definitely didn't have internet, or very little internet.
19, I think the internet was 1990. Was it 1992?
Yeah. Okay, so it might have been just around. I'm not sure.
I think I might be wrong. Yeah, I'm guessing.
Yeah. But so Jeff, because Jeff was very big on pressure testing. Because obviously, you know, he was a black belt in karate, started working on a nightclub door and realised quite early on that the karate stuff didn't work in a real life violent situation.
Yeah.
So he adapted it. He went into boxing. So we'd go to a karate club and then he'd go, right, we're boxing tonight. And you think so we would all be there in our karate gis and boxing gloves on. And he'd bring like professional boxers in. They'd be doing lessons for us. Then he started He went to a wrestling club in Birmingham. There wasn't very many wrestling clubs around then. I think Birmingham was the nearest one. I think there was a few up north, but not many around in the country. And the next thing, we're all grappling each other. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were just rolling around the floor trying to strangle each other and stuff. It was mad. And you never knew. Jeff was very good at it. You never knew what we were going to be doing. So you might go in one night and we'd be doing just a basic karate session. And then you'd go in the next night and he'd bring this big bag of gloves in. He had this massive bag and you throw it up. You're thinking, oh no, that means we're going to be fighting tonight. So, but it was all about pressure testing, finding out what worked and what didn't work, you know. So, thanks, Sean. Sean just put a message up. Good to hear from you, Sean. So, it was really all about pressure testing, Alex. You know, you'd go away. I remember going away and working with a guy and doing some like traditional jiu-jitsu stuff, you know, where they grab you and stuff. And this guy was really good. I remember going back to the class and going to Jeff and Matty and that, I've learned this new stuff. And they were like, great, let's pressure test it. Bang. So, it didn't work. It didn't work when one of them was punching me in the face. So, but that was the whole idea of it.
This was two guys squaring off against each other with what, little gloves on? Or no gloves?
So what he'd do is he'd form a circle. So maybe towards the end of the session, he'd form a circle and he'd always ask for volunteers, but you were sort of expected to volunteer. Again, to stand up and face your fear. So, two of you would go in the middle. You'd have boxing gloves on. I can't remember really. They were either bag gloves or they weren't big gloves. And then he'd deliberately keep talking to the whole class. So you'd be standing there facing the guy you were going to be fighting. And again, you know, that scared little kid in you is crapping himself. And he'd deliberately keep talking, sometimes for 5 minutes, which is an eternity and then he'd just go, right, go. And you'd just tear into each other, you know, and that's till someone had enough. But, you know, when I look at the MMA now, the levels now are just like, they're fantastic compared to what we were back then. It was just pure brute. You know, we didn't know that many techniques.
What were the rules back like in the animal day? Like, could you headbutt? Could you gouge? Could you?
At first, yeah, but then it got too dangerous. People were ripping each other's cheeks, and it got to a point where if you were going to bite, you just pinched with your teeth. But you know,
you could bite as well.
You could bite. Yeah. It was trying to get as close to the real stuff as you could. But a lot of times you tended to nullify each other. You know, you'd grab each other, and because we didn't really know what we were doing, it'd become a war of attrition, you know.
Yeah, I think violence, I mean, it's quite appetite. Like when you know, for a lot of guys who start martial arts, boxing, like it sounds quite glamorous fighting. It sounds quite appealing. For anyone who's ever been involved or seen it up front, is really quite ugly, isn't it? It's
horrible.
Yeah, it is. It's not pleasant at all. And Matty said something to me last week when I spoke to Matty. He said that life is so precious. He said I got fed up of hurting people.
Yeah.
I think, and this is why I guess I started off this conversation with like, do you think that violence? Because I don't know how that spilled out into normal life or whether it did, but do you think that kind of shaped like who you are now and what you went on to do after being involved in that violence?
I think that violence helped me to face the fear of violence. But again, like we said earlier, then you project that onto something else. You know, so people think, you know, because you've done all that, you're not scared, but I'm still scared. You know, but I guess what I learned from that is to, like I said, joining a fire service and having to go up a ladder straight away and thinking, I'm shit scared of heights, but I'm still going up the ladder. You know, it's the same. I learned that with the animal days. I'm shit scared of the guy standing up that I've got to face, but I'm still going to face you. So I guess that's one of the things I took from it. It helped me to face my fears, but I guess the fear didn't go away. They just come up in different guises. And I agree with Matt here. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like we said earlier, Alex, when you get there and you learn to have a fight and you get all this recognition and all these dans and everything else, you think, actually, this is not what I thought it would be. I remember getting my first black belt and feeling disappointed. So I remember thinking, when I get that black belt, that'll be it. You know, I don't know, at some level I was thinking everyone will respect me, you know, everyone will look up to me. And I got this black belt and I thought, it doesn't feel any different. I've just got a black belt around my waist now. And being really disappointed and realizing then that that's not what it's about. It's not about other people respecting me. That's nice. But it's about me thinking, when I get that black belt, that'll be me. I guess I was attaching my worth, my self-worth, who I am, to getting that belt. And then getting it and thinking that didn't change my self-worth whatsoever. You know, so, you know, that's a big thing to learn as well, Alex. That's one of the things that's came out of this lockdown for me, because I've realised, which I did years ago, I attach my self-worth to how busy I am at work. You know, I attach my self-worth to my work life. And obviously with this lockdown, work's gone a bit quieter. But what I've done deliberately is I haven't advertised for clients. I've actually sat in the discomfort of being quiet and not having, you know, this week, from last week I was really busy. This week I've been really quiet. Normally I'd be tearing my hair out thinking, right, I've got to advertise, I've got to get back out there, I've got to get clients. Whereas now I'm thinking, no, just sit with it. Just sit with it, trust it and see what happens, and sit with your discomfort. It doesn't mean anything about my worth, because I'm not chocker with clients at the moment. It's okay. So what I guess what I'm saying is I attach my worth to all the fighting stuff, and it didn't make me feel any better or any different. So again, it's back to the internal stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, we spoke about, you know, how we learn. You know, we learn through experience. But if you look at, like, you know, there's Jeff, yourself, Matty, all been down a similar route where you've all been very violent at times and got into, you know, the animal day and so on, and you've all realized you've all gone a different route. You've all gone down the route of not fighting, and you're one of the nicest, calmest, most relaxed guys that I know. Like, you know, and it's complete polar opposite of the guy you're describing, you know, ripping people's faces and throwing headbutts. And I just find it fascinating. But you did have a bit of a scare at one point, right, where you thought you'd really, really fucking hurt somebody.
Yeah. That was outside my house one Christmas. I ended up getting in a fight with a load of lads, being heavily outnumbered, thought I was going to get killed. But then it turned around because a few of my mates walked around the corner and it turned into a scuffle without getting into all the detail. Yeah, I genuinely thought I'd killed this one lad. He was swallowing his tongue, and luckily there was a nurse came past and she held his tongue up with a spoon. But yeah, I know you asked me before, did that change things? But it didn't. Not at the time. It didn't. You know, I was that angry with him. You know, I think at that moment in time I probably could have killed him. I'm glad I didn't, and I wasn't setting out to kill him. I was setting out to hurt him because of what he'd done. He'd attacked my house with my mum and dad and my pregnant wife to be in there. So, you know. But that didn't have, it sounds bad to say it now because I'm a different person now. I can't remember the last time I had any confrontation with somebody. I got in a row with a guy at a Coventry train station a couple of years ago, and I felt really bad that I'd upset him. He was threatening to knock me out, and I didn't feel physically threatened by him whatsoever. He thought I'd pushed in the queue when I hadn't. And he was going ballistic at me, saying he was going to knock me out, and I was a knob. And I felt bad, Alex, that I'd upset him. And inside I was thinking, you've got no chance of knocking me out, but I'm really sorry that I've upset you.
Well, that's confidence right there. Yeah, that's confidence.
But it's a good place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, they always say when you can have a fight, when you can have a proper fight, you don't fight, because I bet you knew you could hurt that guy.
Yeah, the way he was posturing and going mad, I just thought, but I was genuinely upset because I'd upset him. And I realised that actually when I thought about it afterwards, I thought that's a good place to be, because I don't even want to upset people. let alone get in a fight with them. I don't want to upset them.
Yeah,
You know, I'd rather get on with people.
Yeah, similar to what Matty said, and it's weird. I've never been, into the physical game like you guys have, but I understand that statement completely. Where with my actions, not on a physical level, I just don't want to be hurting people anymore. And I think that's been part of my desire to change, because obviously been in fucked up relationships and all sorts of messy situations myself. And I think most people get to that stage where they want to do more good than harm.
Yeah, I think it's just growing, isn't it? And it's ego as well, isn't it? I did this thing, Alex. I don't think I ever told you, but it's where the name of my book actually came from. And it was a friend of mine she was a counsellor, and I hadn't seen her for ages. And she rang me up and she said, "I've just done this thing. I've just done a diploma in sound therapy."
Right.
I'd never even heard of sound therapy. And she said, "I'm looking for people to practice on. Will you be a guinea pig for me?" And I thought, yeah, okay. And anyway, I went to her house. I had to lay on this couch, like a masseuse bed thing. She put this like a rug over me. And then she'd invested. It was funny, Alex, because it was funny but not funny. She'd invested in all these instruments from America, like she got Tibetan bowls, she'd got the rattles that the Indians use. And so she goes, close your eyes. And I was closing my eyes, and she was going all around me, and she was singing as well. She was singing and using all these instruments. I swear, Alex, I'm lying there, right? And I'm trying not to laugh because I'm thinking, this woman's really serious. But this is so funny. And I was biting the inside of my lip thinking, don't laugh, because this means a lot to her. But I couldn't take it seriously. But then I relaxed. Oh, mate, that was a weird experience, because a few different things happened to me. But the main thing that sticks with me is all of a sudden I'm lying down, I've got my eyes closed, and I had this image of this like Indian, a Native American Indian jumping out of my stomach. And he was standing up looking around. This was at a house in Earlston, a terraced house. And this guy standing around like that, his hands up, just looking around, ready to fight. He's all geared up and ready to fight. And then the thought came into my head, but there's nobody to fight. Who are you fighting against? There's nobody here, nobody. And he disappeared. Then the next thing, a medicine man jumped out of my chest. And this guy's really impressive. He's got all the headgear on. He's frantically running around, casting all these spells. And, I thought, I didn't really understand what that bit meant. And then the next thing, this old guy came out of my head, like an old plain looking old Indian chief, but very plain looking. And he was just looking around, Alex, just looking out the window and seeing this guy had never seen a car. He was like, I don't know how many 100 years old. And he's looking out the window, but his attitude was like, it is what it is. Oh, right. So this is how everything's okay. And now I'll really work on trying to be in that part of my personality. That old Indian chief who's just like, it is what it is. I'll be in the fighter, and that I'm talking about now metaphorically in my head. My thoughts, I'm lying in bed at night fighting 10 different people. And if he says that tomorrow, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And there's no one to fight. I'm just fighting myself. The medicine man I've put down to trying to help as many people as I can, but he's frantically trying to help people. And it's almost like the old chief is just going, look, just chill out. Chill. Everything's okay. Everything's as it's meant to be. Just, it is what it is. Go with it. And that was a really powerful experience for me. Sound bath, yeah.
Because I went for coffee, green tea with Jeff, and we were chatting, and he pulled out one of these these gongs, and looking around like. So he's into it as well. That's.
Well, I told Jeff about the sound bath, and he went and had one with this woman, and
that was it. Yeah.
And I said to him, I phoned him up. I goes, "What do you think?" And he went, "For fuck's sake!"
Yeah.
It's like, he wouldn't tell me what happened. He goes, "Something happened." He goes, "It's personal. I don't want to." And I said, "Yeah, it's fine. I'm okay to talk about mine." So they reckon it's something to do with the vibration. But again, for me, it was that different parts of our personality, whether it's a scared little kid, whether it's the Indian looking around ready to fight everybody when there's nobody to fight. Like I said, I'd rather be that old chief, just calm, take it as it comes.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, you certainly are that. Tone, I know that you said to me before that you don't want to be on here all night, so there's a couple of little things I just want to ask you. Got a few books. I like to do this with people just to see what they've read and then to recommend any books. Tony, let people know what your book's called.
My book's called Fighter, Rescuer, Healer. It's only on Amazon at the moment. But it comes from that fighter, rescuer, healer.
You big player, you. It's only on Amazon.
Well, it is, yeah.
You only get it Prime, delivered Prime.
Yeah, you can only get it Prime, yeah. No, it's for download, I think. Oh, yeah, Time Warrior, yeah. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. It's worth a read. What about this one? You read this one?
Yeah, I like him.
Do you?
Yeah, I really like him. I know you said on the last one you didn't like his book on depression, but I loved it. What was it called? I can't remember. Yeah, it was him. He did one on depression. Oh no, it wasn't him, wasn't it? No.
You're thinking
it wasn't him.
Yeah.
No. There was another guy. Oh, what was it called, Alex? Really good. You had it last time, when you were with Arjuna, but you picked it up and you said you weren't too sure about it. I can't remember the name of the book, but I have read that. Yeah, I like Mark Manson. He's pretty good. He was interviewed by Jordan Peterson not so long ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't like Jordan Peterson's podcast because I want to hear Jordan Peterson. Not
yeah.
I don't know why people like that go into podcasts. I'm like, dude, you've got too much to fucking say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Brian Greene, Until the End of Time.
Don't know him, no.
All about the universe, dude. I'm really getting into that. Stephen Hawking. Yeah,
I haven't read him, but obviously know of him.
Yeah, brief questions to the big answers. And then last one I've got here is, you'll have to say, The Gulag.
Oh, bloody hell. I bet that's heavy.
I don't know. I haven't only arrived today. I don't know why. I'm being told to read these more challenging books. Tony, if you could recommend, or what are you reading right now?
Well, I got the Jordan Peterson one today. My kids ordered me that for Christmas and it came today.
Amazing. Yeah,
his new book.
Today, didn't it?
I've got his Maps of Meaning book, which is really heavy.
Dude, it's 50 quid in Waterstones, that one. I'm going to get that.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy. It's good, but it's really, really heavy.
It's a big book.
Yeah, it's a big book. Yeah.
Let's have a look. Yeah, I really wanted to get that.
Can you see it?
Oh, mate, that's awesome. Yeah.
Maps of Meaning. Can you see it?
Yeah, he's a smart dude, isn't he? I don't know why he gets so much stick, Jordan Peterson. He comes in for a lot of criticism off people.
I think because he speaks about topics that other people don't want to talk about, doesn't he? Like race and
politics. Yeah. But he never really says anything. He never really says anything particularly offensive. I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. But I guess it's that's what he's into, isn't it? The political left and stuff like that. And they hate him, don't they? So
yeah. So you're reading. If you could recommend some top few books off the top of your head, what have been some of your favourites?
I love this. I've just been reading this recently. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I've read that.
Did you read it?
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that. I'm reading that because I've just been reading like Maps of Meaning. I've got Carl Rogers, the Red Book. Jeff gave me it. It's like a Bible. But but again, can you see that?
No, it's miles. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I never. Oh, Carl Jung, what a legend!
Yeah. That's who Jordan Peterson quotes. So if you think Jordan Peterson's heavy,
read Carl Jung.
Read Carl Jung because that's who he quotes. So again, every time I see Jeff, he keeps saying to me, "Have you read the Red Book yet?" And I'm Jeff, I'm a third of the way through it. And then next time I see him, I'm still a third of the way through it. But it's one you can just take your time with.
Yeah, I think you have to, don't you? I must admit, I do love Divine CEO and Notes from a Factory Floor. I think they're real next level from Jay. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, I'm lucky because obviously, say lucky because I see him quite a bit. So when he brings out a book, I normally get a copy. So I'm quite lucky. So
I'm in touch with him. So hopefully, I think we'll hopefully touch wood. We'll get him on here and pick his brains a bit.
Yeah. I think he's doing a lot of podcasts at the moment, ain't he?
I spoke to Sharon, so hopefully we'll. But
cool.
And then anything on TV that you're watching, Tone? I just always like to find this out as well. Anything?
Not really, mate. I tend to watch sport, animal documentaries and stuff. With being stuck at home, I've watched a few Netflix things, but I don't know. I often think if it wasn't for the lockdown and being stuck at home, I probably wouldn't be watching them.
What you watch?
Just started to watch one last night, Vikings. I watched what did I watch? what's the one about the president? I can't remember. I'm terrible with names, Alex. The Last Survivor or something. Designated Last Survivor.
No,
It's about. It was quite interesting. It started off. I find that a lot of them start off the first series are normally really good, and then they get a bit crap.
Yeah, Vikings like that.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for the writers to keep it going, isn't it? And they get a bit
Vikings. I think it was like 100 episodes or something. It's too many. There's a brilliant documentary on BBC, Tone, on BBC iPlayer called "Can't Get You Out My Head."
Right. Okay.
Fantastic, mate. So again, it's all about psychology. It's phenomenal. I think you'd find it interesting.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that. Yeah, I watched one the other week on near-death experiences. That's interesting.
I've just bought a book on the whole concept of death and why you're as scared of it as you are. So yeah, I'm reading some weird shit at the minute.
Some good stuff. Well, I travelled around California. Was it last year, the year before, with a guy called Reverend Bill, and it was like, oh man, what a character! And he's had. It'd be good to get on here as well. I'm sure he'd come on.
Okay.
You won't shut him up. But he's had a few near-death experiences and travelled around. He was a machine gunner on the helicopters in Vietnam.
Right.
So, when they went in to rescue soldiers and stuff, that was his job. And some of his experiences then, he says he's psychic and he could tell what helicopters were going to get hit and stuff like that. Now, I travelled around California with him for 16 days. Like Jeff calls him a shaman. He's like, you travelled around California with a shaman for 16 days. But we just had a really good time. We went camping and stuff like that. It was brilliant. Maybe you
can introduce us. That'd be cool.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's great. Like I said, he's had so many near-death experiences. When I met him, the first thing he did, Alex, when I got to California, he gave me these little tablets, and I said, "What are they?" And he said, "They're glycerine tablets." I said, "What for?" He goes, "He's had 12 heart attacks." He goes, "In case I have a heart attack." And I said, "What do I do?" He said, "Put 2 under my tongue." I said, "Then what?" He goes, "Well, if I don't come round, put another 2 under my tongue." And I was thinking, I've done CPR on a few people as a firefighter, but not very successfully, Alex. So I was thinking, this guy's chances are quite not looking too good if he ever had a heart attack. But luckily, he didn't. 12.
12. Well, he can't be living. He must have some condition, some weird condition.
He reckons it could be because in Vietnam, the Americans, what they did is they coated everywhere in this thing called something orange. It was like an insect. What you put on crops and stuff, a pesticide, and to kill all the animals. So what they did is just because the Vietnamese were hiding in the jungles, what they did is they dropped this Agent Orange everywhere to kill all the. But it covered all them as well. So a lot of them got cancers and heart problems and stuff. They get a payout every year from the American government, anyone who was exposed to it. So he thinks that could have been part of it,
Wow. Have you seen Dark Waters? What's
that about? Rings a bell.
It's about when there was chemicals in the water that a load of Americans were drinking. It gave cancer and killed millions of people. And it was in our pots and pans and stuff. I can't remember what it's called now, but that was interesting.
It's interesting, yeah. But Bill's one of those people, he'd get it, but still live.
Yeah.
I was talking to him recently, and he's got different types of skin cancer now, because California, and I'm like, how does this guy? He's had half his eyelid removed. He's got one on his nose, so they've rebuilt his nose. He's got one on his hip. The guy, he's just one of them people. But his stories are brilliant. He believes he's meant to be here, and he's just a really interesting guy,
Yeah. Well, good people to speak to. Like if everyone thought the same and said the same, it'd be a boring world. So, Tony, that was super interesting. We've gotten some pretty deep stuff there. We've been chatting for nearly an hour and 20. So hopefully people have enjoyed it. They've stayed with us. So we must have done something right, mate.
Brilliant. Cheers, Alex. Thanks. And thanks everybody for watching.
Mate, it's a pleasure. I can get you back on and speak more anytime. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for helping me as well in my development as a man. You've played a pretty big role in that, and you've taught me how to throw some good fucking punches as well.
Thanks, Alex. You've done well, mate. It's good to see you growing and doing stuff and helping other people. It's good.
Cheers, my man. Tony,
cheers, Alex.
Thank you, everybody, for
Take care.
Cheers, my man.
Cheers. Take care, Alex. Bye, mate.
Yeah, mate.